Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org. And this is a quick market update for Thursday, June the 23rd, 2016, and we certainly appreciate everybody being here.
Of, the lowest interest rates in history. If the economy is so strong, they should be raising interest rates like crazy right now to take interest rates from an extremely negative real rate into a positive rate. The historical average for real interest rates is positive 3%.
Yeah.
So
kick it up there, Janet. 3.5%,
right.
4%.
So I think this whole Brexit thing is just being used as another distraction.
And it very well could be, but I think that there's such emphasis on it. I mean, as far as them leaving the European Union, that could be detrimental to the whole European Union experiment. I mean, as far as trying to make Europe into a United States, if you will, and where there's a centralized government with this overarching totalitarian system in place. I mean, that's a big part of the European Union. And instead of having nation states out there like Spain and Portugal, Italy, right down the line, they all have one central reporting. So when the TPP gets signed off on, everybody gets it. So everybody now can be sued by Monsanto unless they use Monsanto seed, unless they use Roundup, unless they use all of these other poisons that are labeled as food. So that is a big part of it. It's a big part of them being in the European Union and whether or not to stay. So, but yeah,
I understand the New World Order argument, and why it's important to the one world, one government concept. But just in terms of, what we're being told is that it'll be a complete economic catastrophe for the West if the UK pulls out. And that's total nonsense. First of all, England's not even culturally and historically really part of Europe. They have their own currency. They have their own, it's really an independent government, independent from mainland Europe. I don't see what the economic benefits are of England remaining in the EU. I understand why Italy and Spain and France and Portugal wouldn't want Germany to leave the EU, because German wealth is being used to subsidize the Club Med country profligacy. So I can understand that, but I don't really see where the UK economy is an integral part of the EU. Obviously the political reasons are there, but who cares? Who cares if the UK pulls out of the EU? The only people who seem to care are the George Soroses of the world, and he's one of the New World Order guys.
Well, there you have it. That is everything you need to know as far as why it's important for them to get out. The only people that are making a stink are the ones that benefit from them being in the EU. That's it.
Right, but I'm just saying it's being thrown in our face like it's the most important vote ever in the history of mankind, and to me it's economically irrelevant. It's just like when Henry Paulson went around when the system collapsed in 2008 and said, if we don't bail out the banks, the whole global economy will collapse. Well, that was nonsense, because all of the money that was used to quote unquote bail out the system was given to the banks. It didn't affect Main Street at all. There's a study that was done that showed that commercial paper rates, which is short-term lending rates, barely even budged during the financial crisis for Main Street companies. In other words, they were able to borrow on a short-term basis almost at the same interest rate as before the collapse happened. It was the commercial paper rates of all the banks that went through the roof, because the banks were going to collapse, not the U.S. economy. And to me,
Right.
this is a similar thing. Oh no, if the UK votes to pull out of the EU, it's going to collapse everything economically in the West. Well, it's total nonsense.
It's just a giant lie. I mean,
Exactly.
my whole thing with what's going on today with this vote is, why would I ever believe that this vote is not going to be rigged? I mean, we've got the LIBOR's rigged, the precious metals market's rigged, Forex rigged, all of these gargantuan markets that impact people all over the world. Why would, and all of this has been proven in a court of law, why would these criminal oligarchs allow this vote to happen and bust up their little parade, their little, their little nonsense that they have going on, this enslavement act known as the European Union? They're not going to allow that. That ain't ever going to happen.
Well, I don't know how it's going to play out going forward. I still, my personal view is that, I mean, the bottom line on this NWO movement is that China and Russia aren't playing ball. And that's why the U.S. has really elevated its military aggression towards both countries, especially Russia. And that is just not going to end well. And that's another aspect that Brexit is being used to deflect interest away from. I mean, here's NATO, or rather the U.S., putting up all these military bases all around Russia's border.
Right, on the border.
And the U.S. is saying that Russia is the aggressor. I mean,
yes.
How inside out Orwellian is that? I mean, what would people in this country do if all of a sudden Russia started putting military bases in Mexico, Canada, Cuba, and off the Pacific coast in international waters? Have them. All of a sudden they start parking some nuclear submarines in international territory in the Pacific.
Yeah, 14 miles off the coast.
That you could say is military aggression. So it's just amazing that everyone thinks that Putin's the bad guy here, and yet that the U.S. is putting nuclear warheads within 100 miles of Russia's border all around it. It's just stunning to me.
Yeah,
but as long as the Brexit is forefront, no one looks at that. But and Paul Craig Roberts has been doing a great job cataloging the events, but there's quietly the U.S. has escalated the tensions between U.S. and Russia to the point where apparently the other day Russian and U.S. warplanes tangled it up over Syria.
Would that be again? Because,
right. But one wrong button gets pushed, and we're in the road.
Yeah. But
living in the road if we live.
Yeah, I still go back to that. That doesn't really benefit anybody. I mean, not even the psychopaths running the program.
They don't care. They're insane. Look at Hillary Clinton. I mean, she's an insane criminal. And that's another thing that this Brexit thing is deflecting interest away from, is the fact that, I mean, she's a criminal who's probably going to be the next president, because it looks to me like Trump's going to blow it.
Why do you say that?
He's not raising any money. He's embarrassing himself, making fun of handicapped people. And Hillary's supporters, they're adamant. They just look the other way. They don't care. She could kill their kids and they wouldn't care. They'd still vote for her. And supposedly Bernie's supporters won't vote for her. But at the end of the day, when they get into the booth, they'll vote for a Democrat because they would never vote for a Republican. That's how these people are.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's frightening times that we live in, Dave. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong at the drop of a hat that it's mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. And the fact that not very many people are paying attention. I mean, as you've pointed out before, if one of our, biweekly rants gets 50,000 views, then does it really matter? I mean,
nope.
It doesn't, because it's only 50,000 people potentially that have seen it. So, I mean, it's, in a country of 320 million people, that's not very many. So, I mean, we're just doing what we can. So, try to protect your family, remind them how much you love them, and that's about all you can do on a daily basis because anything could happen at any moment, in my opinion. These people are completely out of control at this point. They're sick, and I'm sick of it. They're sick.
Well, anyway, to turn it into something positive here, I've been using this opportunity this week in the sell-off in gold. I've been moving money every single day into BitGold
Good for you.
because first of all, the fact that gold isn't down $100 this week tells you how strong the demand is. Because historically, when they start attacking gold and they use, oh well, Brexit's going to be denied and gold ran up because of Brexit, so gold's going to run back down when the stay vote wins. Gold's only down about $35 from its high, and I did the numbers yesterday or 2 days ago. Gold is up 20% since mid-December. The Brexit referendum was established in mid-February. Gold is only up 5% since the actual referendum was approved by Cameron. So, to attribute the run-up in gold to Brexit, and therefore that's why gold is selling off, is absurd. Gold is in a bull market now, and it's being accumulated by large pools of money, smart money, and that's why they're having trouble pushing it lower here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you listened to that interview I did recently with Keith Neumeyer, but he pointed out that with these prominent investors, these big name investors moving into the market, gold pretty much has to go higher because they're not going to allow it to go lower. I mean, when you have, big time investors coming in, I mean, why, it benefits them for it to go higher, why wouldn't it go higher? Right? I mean,
that's right.
I mean, I kind of like that logic a lot.
What also is kind of interesting, and it's something unusual because I don't recall ever seeing it in the 15 plus years I've been doing this sector, is that right now physical gold is flowing from Saudi Arabia to Swiss refineries, and then it's going to London and the US, which indicates, and the thinking for a while has been that in the absence of India from the market right now, what's been pushing gold higher is Western demand, and I think that's what we're seeing, and the flow of gold is suggesting that. And I can't remember where I read it, but someone who is active on the LBMA and reports on one of these websites, might have been King World News or something, I don't remember, had said that the bullion wholesalers over there are in a little bit of a panic because there's a shortage.
Well, there's been a shortage. I mean, the refineries have been running pretty much 24/7 for quite some time now. I mean, that's the last understanding that I had.
I guess now it's even. I mean, it's really starting to show up, and it's starting to, and that's why you're seeing the gold flow from Saudi Arabia to Switzerland into London,
because they needed to cover the LBMA contracts. Is that the thinking?
That plus Western demand, yeah. And the other thing that's interesting is silver's been very resilient. And John Brimlow, who does a Gold Jottings report, it's a pay subscription report that has a lot of good intel in it. He pointed out in one of his write-ups yesterday that there's been a big drawdown in the reported SLV silver inventory. And we've heard about, we've been hearing about a buildup in retail inventory of silver products. And he thinks that that's what's sort of providing the silver for that.
Really? So he thinks that SLV silver is potentially going to the U.S. Mint?
Well, everywhere, because silver apparently, when you look at the premiums coming in on retail silver, suggesting that there's more supply than demand.
Well, now, if you listen to the doc a couple weeks ago, he and Eric Dubin were talking about the wholesalers for the authorized purchasers for American Silver Eagles. They were going to dump all of their inventory so that they could start to rebuild. And since they had gotten word from the mint that the allocations or ration sales were now over, that they were going to dump all their inventory and start to rebuild and buy as much as they can, because the more that they buy, the further up the food chain that they go as far as the U.S. Mint is concerned. So if they were buying 1 million a day and they go to 1.5 million a day, then that pushes them further up the food chain. And if there is, or not if, but when there is another shortage or the U.S. Mint sells out, then they are closer to the front of the line when sales pick back up and when the ration sales begin again. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, and that's what's happening there.
Well, what makes sense is that you're supposed to load up on silver when premiums are low, so that way you don't have to chase it when premiums are high. Pretty simple. And that,
well,
that
you're using logic, Dave.
Most retail investors behave counterintuitively. They're afraid to buy silver when the premiums are low, and then they chase it like crazy when the premiums start to skyrocket.
Because that's illogical.
It's just fear.
It's just fear. Well, tomorrow we have the legend, the man, the big yellow hat that's going to be in the house. And I'm talking about the president and founder of Turdville, Mr. Craig Hemke. I'm pretty stoked about that. How about you, Dave?
I'm really stoked. And in fact, if I remember, I want to ask him if he's actually wearing that hat while he's chatting with us.
Well, just so you know, I will be wearing mine as a proud member of Turdville.
And we can ask him if he had a good time with his in-laws in Nebraska.
Oh, well.
That'll put a burr in his saddle, so to speak, get him fired up for the show.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Dave, I guess we'll pick it up tomorrow when we have Mr. Hemke on the line, and just have yourself a good afternoon, and hopefully Brexit will happen instead of remain. So
we shall see.
We shall.
Talk to you tomorrow.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.